wherever you are in the world. And let me know where you are watching from, by the way. Drop it in the comments to see who's tuning in from where and where everyone is right now. I tried to find a time that more people can watch because it's the middle of the day here in the UK, which means if you're over in Asia or Australia, it's almost evening time. If you're in the US, it's the morning. So hopefully there is a way we can all watch this. Today, in this episode, I want to get into how I was able to afford to travel for the past almost 6 years now. It's coming up on 6 years next month. And I know for the last few months, obviously I've been in lockdown here in the UK, so I haven't been able to travel, but I've decided to put it down as 6 years anyway, because I would have been. So 5.75 years, technically, I've been traveling continuously. And once all this is sorted out, then I'm going to be able to get back to travel as well. So for me, I started traveling officially the time I quit my job, sold my stuff, and decided to start traveling and try and start earning and making money online was in July 2014. That was when I quit my job, and that was when I was like, okay, now I'm never going to try and go back to a full-time work again. Instead, I'm going to figure out how I can make money online and continually travel. I didn't really know how it was going to work at the time. I just kind of had this idea that I wanted to do that. And it was off the back of reading the 4 Hour Work Week, which if you haven't read it, by the way, I would definitely recommend it. And if you have, then you know it's basically the idea of working from distance, working a few hours a week and creating a passive income. In practice, it doesn't really work that way. You have to spend a lot of time. You can't just spend a few hours a week. So that idea of 4 Hour Work Week is not like really tangible in my eyes, but the idea of working so you can have a passive income is. And that gave me the idea of starting to travel and work from anywhere, because it was something that wasn't that available until recently. With the rise of the internet and everything else, it gave us the ability to, and maybe 10, 20 years ago, it wasn't so possible. So I had the idea that I wanted to do it, but I didn't really know how. And it was really scary at first. Like I remember going to tell my dad that I was planning to do this and stepping away from the kind of career that I'd stepped into, which was working as a project manager in a bank, which is the first job I had after university. And it was a fairly decent job, but I was walking away from that to try and follow something that was completely unproven, and we had no idea how it was going to work. I was like, yeah, I'm going to travel, but I'm going to try and start a business and start making money from it. It sounded so wishy-washy at the time, because it was more like, yeah, you just want to travel and you just want to backpack. Which is completely true. I did just want to travel and I want to backpack, but I wanted to figure out how to make money from it too, so I could do more of that traveling and backpacking. So it got to the end of August, because I decided to, after quitting my job in July, I decided to do a month of traveling around UK, and I cycled with to Stonehenge with one of my best mates, and I went on a few different trips around the UK before I went away traveling. And then in the middle of August was when I actually took the first flight and decided to leave the UK for however long that would be. I had no idea at the time, and start trying to travel and make YouTube videos. I'll be completely honest, that I didn't have the discipline to do what I do now then. I didn't have the discipline to make videos and edit and upload it and even think about it properly as a business. I kind of had this idea that it was all just going to fall into place if I started making videos and uploading them, but I didn't put enough time and effort into it at the time. So even though I went away traveling and I was really enjoying the traveling side of it, I 100% didn't start earning any money then for the first 9 months of travel. And that's just like, before I get into the travels we did do, that's completely true, because I spent more time partying and enjoying myself than I did actually editing any videos. And after a few months, I just kind of stopped editing those videos. But the first flight in August of 2014 was to Barcelona. It was a one-way flight where me and my mate flew there, and we went to Barcelona for a few days and then went down to the Tomatina in was it Burnout, just outside Valencia. It's the throwing of the tomatoes festival, and that was really cool. That was really fun. Did that with a few mates that joined us there. And then from there, we did the Interrail trip across Europe into Croatia, where we did Outlook Festival for a week, because it's a music festival where you can volunteer for free. So me and my mate volunteered so we could go to the music festival for free. We saw it as like, a week's free accommodation, and we got to go to a music festival. So we had that as kind of an option to keep it cheap. And that was really cool. And then from there, continued interrailing down to Turkey, where that was the first month of our travels. And then from Turkey, we flew into India. India was like really, really cool. But at the time, I mean, it was kind of overwhelming as well. It was the first time I'd been to somewhere like that. And I was only like 22 at the time, 23 maybe. And as amazing and incredible as India is to travel around, I really think it is, we were sort of underprepared for how hectic it is, and how many people are trying to scam you, and all of that side of it. So I ended up not massively enjoying India at the time. And we actually, after a month there, went up to Nepal and spent a month in Nepal, which is like kind of like a more chilled version of India from like the outsider's perspective. I do love traveling to both India and Nepal now, but Nepal was a little bit less hectic, and we enjoyed that a lot more. So then we did Nepal, India, and Sri Lanka for 3 months, keeping it really cheap again. And still at this point, I wasn't trying to really make many videos. I was still trying to keep up with this idea I had, which was filming a second every day for all of my travels. Then at the end of the year, I could compile them into this one big video. So I was still keeping up with that as much as possible. But in terms of making any videos for YouTube and really figuring out how to make money online, I wasn't doing much of it at all then. I was just enjoying the backpacking and travel side and watching, enjoying the life part of it, but watching my bank balance slowly going down. And I do think that's important for anyone that's starting to travel now. I would say, like, there's no point in just jumping straight into it and just like working 95% of your time and not really enjoying the travel part of it, because then why go in the first place? What was the point of you going if you're not going to enjoy the travel side of it? But there is a balance there. So I do think, like, take some time to enjoy the travel, but also think about how, if you want to do this long term, how much time you can put aside to actually figure out ways to start making money for yourself, whether or not that's creating YouTube videos and editing and uploading. If you can enjoy and just travel 4 days of the week, maybe you can spend 3 days of the week doing that. There's definitely a balance to be had there, but I didn't have that balance at the time. And because of that, I mean, after Sri Lanka, we flew into Thailand. Me and my mate John Cheng, who's been on the more recent videos, actually. He was the one I originally went away traveling with. We flew into Thailand, went down to Indonesia, and ended up in Bali, which was where I completely ran out of money. And I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is why I should have been working, because now I've run out of money. But I had a great time for that first 9 months, and we were only spending 15, 20 bucks a day. And it was really, really enjoyable. I loved it. I loved every part of it. But I'd now run out of money, back to square one. Fortunately, we did have the backup plan of the working holiday visa in Australia, and that was always kind of the plan. It was when we ran out of money, I'm going to go to Australia for the working holiday visa and try and get jobs and save up money there. And I wasn't even clear at this point whether or not I'd end up even staying in Australia or what I'd do after that, but at least Australia was the backup option, so we didn't have to fly back to England with tails between our legs. Also, to go to Australia on the working holiday visa, you're meant to have an amount of savings in your bank account. So that they say you need enough savings to last there for 3 months. So if you don't get a job and you need to be able to support yourself, I would say for myself, I definitely didn't have that. I was in my overdraft before flying to Australia, which is like, I was minus £200. And then I flew to Australia and, spent the last couple £100 on the hostel we were staying in, which in Australia, they're expensive. I was staying in a 20-bed dorm in Perth, and it was like €30 a night just to get one bed in a 20-bed dorm. But that's what you kind of need to do when you first go there in order to get a job, so then you can make more money on the working holiday visa. It ended up that I didn't get. Morning, guys. Morning, Ben. Morning, Chin Chin. Yeah, it ended up that I didn't get a job straight away. So I ended up instead saving money by working in the hostel. And the deal was that if you, yeah, I think it was like 5 shifts a week of 3 hours a day, then you got to stay there for free, which was fine by me. It was just like cleaning hostels and, cleaning dorm rooms or whatever. It was easy enough. I actually, like, just saw a comment there, Perth is the worst place. I actually really enjoyed Perth. I liked it, it was spread out. I know people say it doesn't have like a lot going on, but I really enjoyed it. But I can't compare that to the rest of Australia because, as I was going to say in a minute, like I ended up just spending 6 months saving and staying in Perth. So initially we kind of had this plan to see more of Australia, but I ended up just staying in Perth and saving as much money as I could. I started off cleaning hostels until I got a bar job, which again, I'll be honest, I put on my CV that I had 2+ years of bar experience as like a typical backpacker in Oz thing to say when they don't actually have it. I had worked in a bar before, but not really. And then I got this bar job out in the middle of nowhere in Perth, and they let me go after a week because clearly I had no idea what I was doing. So that didn't really work out with the working in a bar in Oz. But instead, I found a okay-ish temp job in an office, and that was paying decent money because Australia does pay decent money for things like that compared to other countries, and it means you can save up a decent amount of money. Like I was getting $30 an hour, 30 Aussie dollars an hour for not doing anything really technical or that hard. And I was paying, $200 a week, but I was earning $30 an hour on 40-hour weeks. So I was saving or, having $1,000 set aside each week to put away towards travel, which is why I'd say to anyone, do have a look at Australia as a backup option if you can, if you're looking to travel long term, because there's really good opportunities to save there if you can, doing like all kinds of jobs. But yeah, I mean, I ended up just back in an office in Australia on the other side of the world, which is what I was trying to get away from originally. I've got like, for me, like, it's not what I wanted to do. Like, I know lots of people will be very happy with their jobs, and that's completely cool. But for me, like, it wasn't where I wanted to be, and I just ended up back in an office on the other side of the world doing almost the same thing that I didn't want to do. So that was kind of a wake-up call for me. And I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this and I still want the same thing, I just didn't work hard enough before. So how am I going to do that? And how am I going to go back to getting to being able to afford to travel full time? If I'm going to do that, then I need to really concentrate and have more discipline. So this time, after saving up for a few months in that office job, I then decided to go back at the travel idea and figure out how to make money online, but with more discipline. So I said, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm going to create a video every 2 days, like clockwork. Maybe a video every day if I can. But if I like my one goal is to get a video out every 2 days, and that obviously means I'm going to have to spend more time working or filming or more editing than just enjoying myself and going out and partying. And so I flew back into Bali just after my birthday. I think it was September 30th or something. My birthday is September 25th, by the way. But yeah, it was like September 30th, 2015. So almost a year and a bit after I initially decided to start doing this, I flew back into Bali with the idea that I was just going to make videos and make the YouTube thing work. I flew to Bali for a few weeks, caught up with some mates there, made a few videos, and then flew on to Philippines, where I spent a month in the Philippines creating more content. And I was kind of fortunate at this time as well, because the year before that I'd spent getting a video 1 second a day for every day, I spent a couple of months while I was in Perth, while I was working in the evenings, editing that into a video that ended up going quite viral. And that's got like over 1 million views now. And I was quite fortunate because although some videos could flop, and I put a lot of time into it, and I had the idea, and I made sure I did it as the best I could, but still those videos can flop. And I was quite fortunate that it did take off, and that brought some subscribers back to my channel. My channel started getting a bit of traction as I had that first sort of viral piece of content that would then lead people to watch my travel vlogs. And that was the idea, that as long as I just continued creating videos, then I'd get some traffic coming in from that first video, but more people would find me because of my other videos. I just continued with this for maybe 6 months, creating a video at least every 2 days and every day if I could. Yeah, that video was demonetized. I just saw the comment there. It was demonetized, but it didn't. It still kept getting views, so it didn't make me any money, but it still kept getting people to come back to the channel. And yeah, I just saw as well, what year did you do that Al Jazeera show? That was actually the same year. And I did this show on Al Jazeera called the Al Jazeera Stream. And that came off the back of this video. It came off the back of like I was quitting my job to travel the world. And I got called up for the AJ stream and it was an episode devoted to people that had quit their job to travel the world. So that again was some more exposure for me just off the back of this video that ended up getting more people to come back to my channel. And that was that year. That was even after the first 6 months of going back to travel after Australia that it started to get a bit of traction. So I was fortunate in that way, but then I decided to like keep trying to capitalize on it by making more videos, making more content, and just getting more videos out there so more people could find my channel. And that was the only really way I knew how to make money at the time. So that was what I was doing. I was just concentrating on YouTube as a means to an end. That's interesting. I had no idea how many subs I had at the time, but that's funny that even I got called up for that, and I just got an email at the time because of this video that was going quite viral. So I continued with that, and then until I got very lucky that I got a reach. Someone reached out to me on the back of that video as well about coming to China to take part in a jiu-jitsu camp for 2 or 3 months. I don't know, jiu-jitsu is not even a Chinese martial art, but there was a jiu-jitsu camp where I was invited to come and train there and make videos for them, and got food and board and everything for free, just as long as I made videos for them. So that was really fortunate at the time, because that was like 6 months into my travel where I got everything covered because I'd started making these videos, and then that was sort of an advert for myself and the service I could provide for them, I guess, because then they came and saw those and they were like, hey, can you come do that, but for us? So on back of the YouTube, I then got offered 3 months free board and travel to China. And that kind of gave me, that gave me a real spring, because that gave me time where I didn't have to worry about the money side of it. I didn't have to think about like, how can I save money? Instead, I could really just concentrate on the videos and really concentrate on working and making that work. And that then led to more opportunities, because I think on the back of that, after seeing my channel, seeing that other video that went viral, and then seeing those videos, I started getting approached by some bigger companies. And at this point was when my YouTube channel started taking off a bit as well. But I got approached by Royal Caribbean to do a series with them on one of their cruise ships, where they paid for everything and paid on top and flew me in there and flew me out. And this was when I only had like 7,000, maybe 6,000 subscribers. So the channel wasn't huge by any means at that point, and yet I started to get offers because I was consistently making content and I was consistently improving it, and I think it was getting noticed. And it was only about 6 months after I initially started and decided to really be disciplined with this that I was like starting to get some feedback and starting to get noticed, I guess, with it. And Royal Caribbean came at a really great time, because that was also, I mean, for those of you that might have followed me since then, that was also where after China, I decided to move to Jakarta for my ex-girlfriend. And I was living there in Jakarta and also making videos about Indonesia. And that was also kind of a good opportunity, because there wasn't that many videos about Indonesia besides Bali at the time. So those videos were getting picked up too. And all this kind of happened circumstantially. I didn't mean it at all, but it was only because I was making more and more videos just about wherever I was that I was getting lucky enough that they were getting picked up. And without really thinking about it, it all just kind of snowballed into a bigger YouTube channel. And that's just kind of the way I continued for the next couple of years. Into 2016, I just continued making more YouTube videos, and I continued getting more sponsored opportunities and more paid trips. But I will say at this point, like, sponsored opportunities and paid trips were very, very rare. Like I didn't, maybe I'd get one every 12 months or something. But what was more likely, and what I was getting offered more often, was, hey, come along on our trip for free if you make some videos for us. I'd still have to pay for the flights, but it's quite a low risk option for a tour company to say, hey, come and travel with us. We've got this spare spot. It doesn't cost them loads. And I would create the videos and social media content for them and for my own channel. So I think a lot of people will say, don't work for free and you should never work for free. But I don't particularly agree with that, especially not within the whole travel thing. Because if you can work for free or work for expenses, in travel, sometimes you get to do some really epic opportunities because of that. And you can do some really cool things just because you have the knowledge and the know-how to make videos for this company. And the trade might be good enough for you. You don't have to say, I'm not going to do that unless I get paid, because it might actually be a really good exchange of value. So especially initially, and I still do them now as well, I mean, if it's something I really want to do, but especially initially, I was accepting a bunch of trips that were free. And, for me, that was amazing at the time. I'd only started this YouTube channel like a year ago, and now I'm getting to go on free trips. That's really cool. It's what I'd always wanted. It's amazing. So I was doing some free trips and then doing some of my own trips in the meantime. And for someone that hadn't really figured out at the time how to make good money, it also meant that I could travel for free for a couple of weeks. And that's great because it means I'm not spending any money. So I did continue to do that for a lot of 2016 and 17, but I also started to experience, I would say, a bit of burnout from consistently making videos so often. I was trying to get them up as often as I possibly could, like every 2 days, every 3 days. And I felt as if at the time that if I didn't put videos up on YouTube, then I'd be losing all of that traction. I felt like, oh God, if I miss an upload spot, then I've undone all my hard work. And so I felt a bit of burnout where I was like, oh God, I've got to slow down. And I decided to slow down and to stop for longer in certain places. Like, I mean, this is jumping forward a bit, but then I ended up moving to Bucharest and just spending 6 months there, where I don't think I created any videos at that point. And I don't know if that was, I don't think that was reflected that badly on my channel, because I still had some videos before that I just never got around to editing, so I was still putting those up. But I think for about 6 months, I didn't create any new videos, and I just sort of took a step away from YouTube because I was feeling a bit of burnout. And I think that's like one thing I would say to people is that's completely fine. You go in and out of love with whatever profession you're in, I think, and you can go in and out of love with YouTube, and I know a lot of people do. Some people step away from it and then come back. And I think when you do step away and come back, you sort of start to see things with new eyes as well. And you start to think about how you can maybe make a video better, or what you could do better, and maybe other ways of making money as well, which is what I did at the time. And I started looking at, okay, maybe YouTube isn't the only thing I can be posting videos to. Maybe I could also be posting videos to other sites. Maybe how does stock footage work? How can I make that work for me? And how can I be less reliant on YouTube so I can still afford to travel and still afford to do the things I want to do and make the videos about the things I want to make videos about without being so reliant on either sponsored videos or AdSense each month. I think that sort of step away from it really made me think about that, because I think that was why I was getting burnt out. I still love making videos, and I still love making videos for YouTube now, but it was kind of that feeling of having to make a video unless I wouldn't, having to make a video, otherwise I wouldn't have enough money for the month or next month. And it was that kind of pressure that was piling on top because I'd made it into my full-time thing. And I started to then understand that, okay, but if I have enough money coming in besides that, then I can just have YouTube as really my passion part of it, and make the videos about the things I want to make videos about. So that was sort of a mind shift for me at the time. I guess that was probably 2017. And then 2018 sort of continued along that same track, trying to do more things on the side. Ended up moving to Bali, on and off. I think I've been backwards and forwards between Bali and other places a few times. And then I also did this thing called the Travel Continuously Summit, where at the time, this was 2018, I think, we took 10 people, me and my friend Rich, who is a blogger and writer. We took 10 people to the Philippines, along with Jord Hammond, who's an Instagrammer. and Anton Diaz, our Awesome Planet, who's another big blogger. And we had the idea to try and coach people how to travel continuously and how to make money from different things. Because those guys are well-respected bloggers and they can make money. They know how to make money from blogging and websites and all that side of it. George Hammond does all of it through Instagram and photography and can make money in that way. And then I covered the YouTube side. And that started the idea for me of how I could do that more in the future to coach people how to do this sort of thing and how to make money online. And that is something I'm definitely planning to continue in the future, which is why I have this YouTube channel and the other projects I've been working on more recently, but I'm not ready to share all of that yet, so I'm going to share it soon. But basically, for the last couple of months while I've been stuck here in the UK, I have been working very hard on that sort of thing. So I'm going to come back to that later. But yeah, that was sort of because I'd spent this time previously, as I said, figuring out other ways to make money online. I then started wanting to share that with other people too. And sorry, I just missed a question in here. So let me jump back to that. Oh, 1 second. How did you start meeting other YouTubers like Lost the Blank? How does something like that come about, and do YouTubers keep in touch? Yeah, generally, I think the way I've usually met people is, I mean, early on, it was just through sending an Instagram DM or a comment or saying like, hey dude, you're in Bangkok, you want to do something. I think specifically for Christian, I think that was how we met. And for other people, it's either friends of friends or just like people, I guess people tend to know each other as well. I mean, if you're doing YouTube, then maybe you know other YouTubers around a similar size, and then you kind of want to hang out and do things together because, I mean, it helps both of you and it's cool to go and create content with people. And then you sort of build those relationships over time. So yeah, I don't think there's any exact way of doing it. There's not like a group you can join and then everyone's like, oh, let's go and hang out. It's more just like building those relationships and that network the same as you would do normally. But yeah, I mean, from there, after 2018, I got to do Kilimanjaro and Japan straight after that Travel Continuously trip, which was really, really cool. And two of my biggest highlights doing Kili and Japan, but they're also quite expensive trips. And I was more fortunate at that time that I had more built up some other means of income, because definitely my YouTube AdSense at the time wouldn't have paid for that. And I got to do Kilimanjaro in Japan, and like Japan was great. But the bigger highlight for me was Kilimanjaro. It kind of spurred me on to wanting to do more treks and big adventure trips and like big bucket list items, which is why then the following year I attempted and this is 2019 we're into now. The following year I attempted the marathon on the Great Wall of China, which of course I didn't complete that time, for any of you that saw the video. I got to go to bigger, more exciting places in my eyes, like North Korea and Syria and Chernobyl and Ethiopia. And I just started to appreciate going to more of those places that are more off the beaten path and these epic ideas that I've really wanted to do, but maybe I didn't have the ability to do before. And that was my plan this year as well. I had plans for Pakistan to climb K2 base camp, to do the China Marathon on the Great Wall again in August of this year, which obviously is not happening. East Timor was going to be one from Bali, South Africa by the end of the year, and obviously none of these are happening. But they're the kind of trips I want to do now, because I've been able to, over the last few years, build up a decent enough recurrent income that now I can think about doing these bigger trips rather than just focusing on the really cheaper places, which is how it started initially. And the point I want to make there is that it continues snowballing more and more. Like I don't want to be one of those gurus that just says this is how like you make like loads and loads of money. It doesn't happen like that overnight. It's more just like if you just can keep continually putting the effort in and consistency and keep putting that hard work in and keep creating videos and keep figuring out more ways, then it does. And it does snowball into more and more. There's no quick fix to it. It is just more consistently doing the right things. I just saw there that, I wasn't prepared at all for Kilimanjaro. You're absolutely right. Funnily enough, actually, that was Well, that was after a 2-week trip through Tanzania. I'd already done a 2-week trip with one of my mates' tour companies. It was called Give Back Giveaway at the time. Now it's Medita Adventures. And the only reason I know them and have a relationship with them, by the way, is that back in like 2016, I just reached out on a Facebook comment and said, hey, I love what you're doing. Could I come along and create some videos? And it would be really cool to hang out. And then from there, we did a trip originally to Cambodia, like ages ago. And I've just done other ones with them since because I offered to work for them for free. So then we did Tanzania as well, and that was great. That was a really cool trip. But Kilimanjaro was straight after 2 weeks of traveling through Tanzania and then going to Zanzibar and pretty much like, drinking most nights, partying in Zanzibar at sea level, and then flying to Kilimanjaro with nothing before trying to climb Kili with no gear. So probably the opposite way around that you should do it. If you do plan to do Kilimanjaro, probably fly to Kilimanjaro, climb it, and then fly to Zanzibar and enjoy and party and relax. I wouldn't do it the way I did it. But yeah, we did complete it at least. It was Johnny Ward, and that was how I got in touch with him initially. I just sent a comment on one of his Facebook posts, met him in Bangkok for a coffee, and I was like, yeah, dude, let's do something together. And then it kind of continued from there. See another comment here. What dollar amount per month and savings can you feel like you have made it to a point you can feel safe in what you're doing? And to be honest, in Southeast Asia, it all just depends on your level of luxury you want. You can quite comfortably live in Southeast Asia for $20, $25 a day, depending on where you're staying. And even with that, like people will be saying, yeah, but I don't want to stay in a hostel. But it just depends on what you're spending your money on, because you could also even stay in a Airbnb or a cheaper hotel for that sort of price if you're only spending your money on street food and like cheap food and public transport, eating from food courts or whatever. It really does depend. So I mean, like if you had $50 a day in Southeast Asia, that would be more than comfortable to do anything you want. But I think like 20 to 30, even $30 a day is a reasonable amount of money to have to be able to live and live fairly comfortably in a lot of Southeast Asia. But $50 a day would be a much better amount in my eyes. And I'd say that is also initially why I decided to stay in Southeast Asia when I flew on from Australia, because I was like, well, I've saved up this amount of money that I could spend in maybe 2 months in Australia. But if I flew to Southeast Asia and I focused on Bali and Philippines and Indonesia and that would last a lot longer. I was about to say and Thailand, but it was cheap at the time. It's not so cheap anymore, depending on what you want to do. It has become more and more expensive, but it's still relatively cheap compared to Australia. But yeah, I decided to spend more time in Southeast Asia because I knew that I would have a bigger window in order to make this work and in order to figure out how I could afford to travel for the long term. I will say as well, just relating it back to the kind of situation we're in right now, I don't think the need or the desire for traveling is going away anytime soon, even if it's more difficult immediately. And the ability to make money online is only going to get bigger because there's more people doing it now. More businesses are switching to remote work, working from distance, and more businesses are now catching up to the fact that you can work online. So even whatever job you're doing, I mean, obviously there's some jobs you can't, but whatever job you're doing, there's a high chance that it may be more likely that it does become more online in the future. So that there are definitely going to be more opportunities for working online, even if that's not YouTube and even if that's not specifically making videos. There are lots of ways that you're going to be able to do that in the future. So if it's something you're thinking about, I think now could be an amazing time to start figuring out and making plans for that. It's just this whole situation has kind of accelerated that. I think companies had the ability before to be able to work online, and they had the ability for workers to work from distance, but they were more stubborn in the fact that, well, why if it ain't broke, why fix it? Like, why change what's working? But now we've kind of seen that companies do have to change that, and a lot of companies are working very well with distance workers. So I see that as a trend that's continuing. And if you can earn a wage from your home country, wherever you are, and then you could live in Southeast Asia, they call it economic arbitrage. If you could earn that wage and then spend it in a much cheaper country where you can live a lot higher standard of living than you could in your home country. So there's going to be some opportunities to do that for sure. And I only see this as a sort of industry that's getting bigger over time. But yeah, that's basically my story. That's how I traveled for the last 6 years and how I've afforded to. Like I said before, I'm going to be going into more detail on this, and also within this online portal that I've been creating over the last couple of months. It's going to be ready to share this month, and I'm going to put it on here as well as my main channel. I've been working on it for like 6 months, and it's going to go into all of this in more depth. But I do want to keep sharing things like this, and I want to continue to do it. In terms of how I'm going to travel for the near future, well, that's still to be decided. I think in Europe, it's all kind of opening up again more and more from July and August. Initially, there's a few countries that are opening up in July. From August, there's going to be more. And then it's just going to depend, I think, which countries are going to shut down again and which countries are going to open up more. And that's going to kind of be localized all around the world. So it's going to change. And I'm not going to be traveling as quick as I was, especially compared to last year. Last year, I was spending like a couple of weeks in a place and then moving on, or a few days in a place, because I wanted to see a lot of things. Now, obviously, I'm not going to be able to do that, at least for the near future, because, you know, it would be more irresponsible right now to fly somewhere for 2 days and then somewhere else for 2 days, and you know, you've got the potential of carrying the virus around without it being necessary. So I think there's an ethical decision to make there. But also, I'm going to prefer, as I'm setting up this new thing that I want to set up, to be a longer time in places. So when I travel now, it's going to be probably at least a month in each place I go to and get to know that place a little bit better. That is the plan for the near future. I'm just going to have to see how that pans out. And I can only do what we can do. Okay. So yeah, I mean, I hope you enjoyed it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you do have any questions, pop them in the comments now. I'm going to hang around for a few minutes because, I mean, I enjoyed that and I'm happy to sit here. So if you do have any questions about anything at all, then let me know. I'm a coffee fiend right now. I'm having so much coffee a day. It is, I've got this like real motivation right now to work, and I've got this real motivation to create more videos, and I just want to be on the laptop. But right now, I mean, as I said in some of the previous videos, my laptop's still out for repair. I did look at renting a laptop for a couple of weeks, and it's like 500 quid to rent a laptop, which is ridiculous. The laptop I've got is a good editing laptop, and it's quite expensive, so I don't think there's any point in me buying an interim laptop, because, you know, I need to edit, so there's no point in buying a worse laptop that I wouldn't be able to edit on anyway. So I'm kind of just waiting for my laptop to come back before I can get on with this work. But yeah, if there's no questions, then no worries. I will jump off there. I hope you enjoyed. Have a good rest of the day, and I'll see you again tomorrow. Thanks, guys. See you later. Oh, wait. Comment. Oh, whoa. I just got loads coming through. That was my internet, I think. All right. To grow a channel, do you think frequent content or more thought out, less frequent content is the way to go? I think definitely there's still a need for more frequent content right now, because there's a lot of eyeballs on YouTube and there's a lot of people looking for content right now. So I would say right now it makes sense to get more videos out there, even if they're not 100% your best work. So even if, you know, let's say your video is 80% as good as you would like it to be, I would say right now, get it out there. And then later in the future, when other people have more priorities and more people are out doing things, then get back to a higher level of content. But right now, there's real opportunity, and there's more people watching YouTube than ever. There's more people spending time on the internet than ever. So right now you have a chance to build an audience, and you have a chance to get your content out there in front of people. In terms of the long term, I would definitely say that it makes more sense to do higher quality and lower quantity, because YouTube is much more competitive now than it used to be. And I think there's even each niche has a lot more people in it. So you have to try and stand out and make your videos unique compared to other people's. And that doesn't necessarily need to be that you have like the most amazing cinematography or high production standard. It's just how can you separate yourself from the competition? And if that means creating a higher quality video, then it's a better idea than creating lots of subpar videos. So I think right now is kind of different advice to what I'd be giving in 6 months' time when everyone's out and back to normal. Italy's opening up a couple of days to tourists. Yep, I saw that. Italy, Iceland, Spain, Georgia, quite a few countries are looking at opening up from well, this month and next month, and so it's going to be interesting. My plans are most likely Spain for a few weeks to go and see my mum, and then I'm thinking right now Georgia. But watch this space because I haven't booked or decided yet. It's not like set in stone, but that's what I'm looking at right now. Is it safe to get a place in Southeast Asia and pay for it up front for 6 months? I haven't personally done this, so I haven't booked anywhere for 6 months myself. So I can't really give you definitive advice, but I would say that it's probably. I mean, I don't know if you get a massive discount for that. In my experience, I mean, I haven't got a massive discount for discussing 6 months. So I mean, again, it depends. It's up to you. I can't really answer that definitively, to be honest. I would say it just depends on who you're talking to and who you're dealing with, and even Southeast Asia. You know, there's lots of different countries there, so it's really up for you to decide if that's worth it for you or not. I know in Bali, actually, most people do pay a year up front because that's just how the rent works there. So if you want to get a discount, you have to pay for a year up front and then decide you like that property for a year. I haven't done that personally myself because I'd rather have the flexibility of having somewhere on and off for a month, and then even if I book it for a few months, I can decide I don't like it and move to somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, I think that's just individual choice. Thanks for doing these videos, Jordan. Why did you kill the first YouTube you had and thought process to start over? Do you mean the first one, the Mr. Challenge 365? Because that's, or you mean this one? Because if you're talking about this one, then I definitely haven't killed the life of Jord. It's just that I don't have travel videos to make right now. But no, the first channel I had was one called Mr. Challenge 365, and that was like, you know, go search it if you want to laugh, because that's like that's me trying to do a challenge, or the idea was of me trying to do a challenge every day for a year, and it really didn't pan out. I got that channel to around 1,000 subscribers until I decided I didn't like the name and I wanted to create the life of Jord instead, which could just be my life and it could be anything I was getting up to. And that was kind of the reason I killed it, because I sort of pinholed myself into doing a challenge every day, which I failed. I didn't do that. And then I had that as like, well, the whole premise of this channel doesn't work. And I probably could have just carried on with that channel and changed the name and no one would have cared. But for me, in my head, I was like, no, I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to make it the life of Jord. And the theme is just my life. If I want to go and travel, it's fine. If I want to go and make videos about whatever else, it's fine, because it's just my life. And that kind of gave me the freedom to create whatever video I wanted, rather than pinholing myself into doing a big challenge every day. That was my thought process. I do think maybe in hindsight, if I just carried on with that channel, then it would have been fine. But that was why I decided to start a new one. I also kind of think as well, had I continued with that first channel and really put effort into it, I probably would have been a lot further ahead than I am now, because this was a year earlier. So that was 2014. And even then I was looking at YouTube 6 months before that. There wasn't a lot of competition then. There wasn't a lot of people making travel vlogs. There was only like a few well-known ones. And so if I'd really doubled down at the beginning of 2014 and worked a lot harder on it, then it could have been a lot further now. But I think that that's true at any point. I think right now, if you start right now, then you're going to be a lot further ahead than if you start in a year's time. Because in a year's time, there's just going to be more competition and you wouldn't have learned all the lessons you could in a year. So while I'm saying that, and I do completely think it's true, I'm just happy I did start anyway, and then I learned from that and carried on. Because the best time to start is always now. Even if you're thinking about it, whatever you're doing, just start doing it, and then you'll figure out the best way to do it over the long term. And then you'll look back on it like me, like I am right now, thinking, oh, I wish I'd started that a few months sooner, or I wish I'd started that a year sooner. It's always the way. So the only way to get over that is to start whatever you're thinking about right now. That is it. I'm going to jump off there. Thank you for watching again, guys, or listening, or wherever you are viewing this. And thanks for joining. I'll see you again in the next video. Ta-ra. Bye-bye. See ya.